The night air whispered secrets to June O'Malley as she fled across the shadowed prairie, her heart pounding against her ribs like a wild mustang trying to break free. Blood trickled down her temple where Garrett's wedding ring had cut her skin, the final injury she would ever suffer at his hands. June had endured 3 years of marriage to Garrett Fleming, the wealthiest cattle baron in Cottonwood Springs, Colorado. His charming smile had hidden a monster who emerged behind closed doors. Tonight, when he'd threatened to brand her as he did his cattle, something inside her had finally snapped. The year was 1878, and a woman leaving her husband was unheard of in these parts. But as June ran through the darkness with nothing but a hastily packed satchel and the clothes on her back, she knew there was no returning. Her bare feet pounded against the hard, packed earth, her silk slippers abandoned miles back when they'd begun to tear. The cool September air sent shivers across her skin, but fear kept her warm enough to continue. The moon ducked behind a cloud, plunging the landscape into darkness. June slowed, disoriented without the silvery light to guide her. She'd been running for hours, following the North Star as best she could, heading away from town where Garrett's influence reached into every corner. A light flickered in the distance. June froze, heart hammering in her chest. It could be anyone, one of Garrett's ranch hands perhaps, or worse, Garrett himself. But the night was growing colder and she couldn't keep going without rest. With cautious steps, she approached what appeared to be a small homestead. The modest cabin sat nestled between several large oak trees, smoke curling from its chimney despite the late hour. A corral housed several horses that nickered softly as she approached. This wasn't one of Garrett's properties. She knew them all, and this simple homestead was nothing like his grand ranch houses. June hesitated at the door, her bruised hand hovering above the weathered wood. What if whoever lived here knew Garrett? What if they turned her away, or worse, returned her to him? But the alternative was a night alone on the prairie, where coyotes and other dangers lurked. With a trembling hand, she knocked. The door swung open almost immediately, revealing a tall man with dark hair and questioning eyes. He held a lantern that illuminated his face, handsome but weathered, with a strong jaw shadowed by stubble. His gaze immediately took in her torn dress, the blood on her temple, the terror in her eyes. "You're safe," he said simply. Stepping aside to let her in, June nearly collapsed with relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse from hours of silent running. "Name's Ryder Harrington," he said, closing the door firmly behind her. "Don't reckon I need to ask what brings a lady to my door at midnight." "June," she replied, suddenly self-conscious of her appearance. "June O'Malley." She'd already decided to use her maiden name again. I can't go back." Ryder nodded once, his expression grave but kind. "Don't need to explain yourself, Miss O'Malley. My home's humble, but you're welcome to stay as long as you need." The cabin was indeed simple but clean and warm. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the wooden walls. A small table with 2 chairs occupied one corner, while a narrow bed sat against the far wall. June noticed a ladder leading to what must be a loft space above. "I don't want to impose," June said, though she couldn't bear the thought of returning to the night. "No imposition," Ryder replied, moving to a small stove. "I reckon you could use something warm to drink. Coffee's still hot." As he poured a cup, June caught sight of a tin star pinned to a vest hanging by the door. Her blood ran cold. "You're the law?" she asked, backing toward the door. Ryder followed her gaze and shook his head. "Deputy, over in Silverton. This here's my family homestead. I only wear that tin when I'm working." He offered the steaming mug. "Nobody's hunting you tonight, Miss O'Malley, not from my cabin." Despite her exhaustion, June remained wary. My husband has friends in every territory. He'll come looking. Most men do when they lose something they consider theirs, Ryder said with a hint of disgust. But I ain't in the business of returning people to those who hurt them. Law or no law. June accepted the coffee with trembling hands, noticing for the first time the painful blisters on her feet. She must have made a sound because Ryder glanced down, his expression hardening at the sight. "Let me fetch some water and bandages for those feet," he said. "You're welcome to take the bed tonight. I'll sleep in the loft." "I couldn't possibly. I insist," he interrupted gently. "My ma would have my hide if she knew I let an injured woman sleep anywhere but the most comfortable spot available." While Ryder gathered supplies, June sank gratefully onto a chair, allowing herself to truly breathe for the first time in hours. She sipped the strong coffee, feeling its warmth spread through her trembling body. "Your husband," Ryder said carefully as he returned with a basin of water, "would he be Garrett Fleming?" June's head snapped up, terror flooding back. "How did you know?" Ryder placed the basin before her, his expression unreadable. "I've heard stories. Man like that makes himself known even towns away." He knelt before her. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her feet. After her hesitant nod, he gently lifted her feet into the cool water. June bit back a cry as the water stung her raw skin. "Sorry," he murmured. "Needs cleaning before I wrap them." "You're not going to send me back to him?" June asked, needing to hear the reassurance again. Ryder's blue eyes met hers, steady and sure. "No, madam, no decent man would." As he carefully tended her wounded feet, June observed him more closely. His hands were strong but gentle, calloused from work yet treating her with such tenderness that tears threatened to fall. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30 to her 23 years, with laugh lines around his eyes that spoke of a kinder life than she'd known recently. "How far did you run tonight?" he asked, dabbing a cloth soaked in witch hazel around the worst of her blisters. "I'm not sure. I left Cottonwood Springs when the clock struck midnight." Ryder let out a low whistle. "That's near 15 miles from here. You ran all that way." "Walked some," June admitted, "but mostly ran. I didn't dare take a horse. Garrett would have tracked me down before I made it 5 miles. "You're mighty brave, Miss O'Malley." June shook her head, wincing as he bandaged a particularly painful spot. "Not brave, desperate. In my experience, they often look the same." Ryder finished wrapping her feet and stood, taking the basin away. "You hungry? Got some stew I can heat up." Despite everything, June's stomach growled at the mention of food. She hadn't eaten since noon when Garrett had been in a generous mood. "If it's not too much trouble." While Ryder busied himself at the stove, June took in more details of his home. A bookshelf held several well-worn volumes unusual for a bachelor's cabin in these parts. A fiddle rested in one corner, and detailed wood carvings decorated the mantelpiece. This was a home, not merely a place to sleep. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Just me," Ryder confirmed, stirring the pot of stew. "My pa built this place when he first came west. After he and ma passed, my brothers took their shares and moved on. I stayed." "It's lovely," June said sincerely. Ryder smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. "It ain't much, but it's mine." He placed a bowl of fragrant stew before her, along with a chunk of bread. June tried to eat slowly, but hunger overtook her manners. Ryder said nothing, simply refilling her bowl when she emptied it. "Thank you," she said when she'd finally had her fill. "For everything." "You should get some rest," Ryder replied. "Morning comes early out here and those feet need healing." June hesitated, suddenly aware of her situation alone in a strange man's cabin, miles from anywhere. But something about Ryder Harrington's steady gaze reassured her. He had shown nothing but kindness, asking nothing in return. I'll be gone at first light, she promised. Ryder frowned. With those feet, you won't make it half a mile. Rest here a few days, at least until you can walk without pain. I can't stay. Garrett will be searching. Fleming has no reason to look here. This place is off the main trails, and I doubt he knows I exist. Ryder paused, considering. But if you're set on moving on, I can take you to Silverton when your feet have healed. You'd be safer there, bigger town, more places to disappear. The kindness of his offer nearly undid her. Why would you help me? You don't know me. Ryder was quiet for a long moment. My sister was married to a man not unlike your husband. She ran too, but didn't make it far enough. His jaw tightened. I wasn't there to help her, but I'm here now and you made it to my door. June understood then. I'm sorry about your sister. It was a long time ago, he said, though his eyes suggested otherwise. Now you should sleep. There's a nightdress of my mother's in that trunk if you'd like to change. With that, he climbed the ladder to the loft, leaving June alone with her thoughts. She found the offered nightdress simple cotton, well worn but clean, and changed quickly, her muscles protesting every movement. The bed, when she finally sank into it, felt like heaven after her ordeal. Despite her exhaustion, sleep didn't come immediately. Every creak of the cabin made her tense, expecting Garrett to burst through the door. But gradually, the steady sound of Ryder's breathing from the loft and the gentle crackling of the fire lulled her into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through the cabin's single window. June awakened disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. The scent of coffee and bacon reminded her, and she found Ryder already awake, cooking at the stove. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Hope you're hungry." June sat up, wincing as pain shot through her feet. "I should help. You should rest those feet," Ryder interrupted. "Doctor always said the best medicine for blisters is keeping weight off them." June reluctantly settled back, watching as he expertly flipped bacon in a cast-iron skillet. "Are you always up this early?" "Sun waits for no man," Ryder replied with a small smile. "Got chores that need doing, animals that need tending. I feel terrible taking your bed while you work." "Don't," he said simply, placing a plate of eggs, bacon, and biscuits on the small table. "Come eat when you're ready." June slowly swung her legs over the edge of the bed, testing her weight on her bandaged feet. Pain shot through them, but she managed to limp to the table. "Thank you," she said as she settled into the chair. They ate in comfortable silence, the morning light warming the cabin. June couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so at ease in another's presence. With Garrett, meals had been tense affairs, his mood dictating whether she could eat in peace or would wear her food before the meal ended. "What will you do?" Ryder asked eventually. "After your feet heal, I mean." June had been asking herself the same question all night. "I'm not sure. I have a little money saved, not much, but enough to get me started somewhere. I used to be a school teacher before I married Garrett. Perhaps I could do that again." "Silverton's been looking for a teacher," Ryder offered. "Last one left to get married 6 months ago." Hope fluttered in June's chest. "Do you really think they'd hire me? A woman alone with no references? Town's desperate enough they might, especially if the deputy vouches for you." "Why would you do that?" June asked, unable to hide her surprise. Ryder shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. "You seem like a good person who's had a bad turn. Besides, town needs a teacher and you need a job. Makes sense to me." His simple logic made June smile. "Thank you. I'll consider it, truly." After breakfast, Ryder changed the bandages on her feet, his touch clinical but gentle. "They're looking better already," he assured her. "Another day or two of rest should have you walking more comfortably." "I can't impose on you for days," June protested. "It's no imposition having someone to talk to," Ryder said. "Gets lonely out here sometimes. Don't you have someone? June asked hesitantly. A sweetheart in town, Ryder chuckled, shaking his head. No time for that. Between deputy work and keeping this place running, I barely have time to sleep. June watched as he gathered his hat and gun belt. Will you be gone long? Just checking the property and tending the animals. I'll be within shouting distance if you need anything. He paused at the door. There's a rifle above the mantel if you need it. Fleming shows his face. Don't hesitate. The offer shocked her. I've never fired a gun. Let's hope today isn't the day you learn, Ryder said grimly. I'll be back before noon. Alone in the cabin, June found herself drawn to Ryder's bookshelf. The volumes revealed an eclectic taste: history, poetry, novels by Dickens and Twain, and practical guides to farming and animal husbandry. One book in particular caught her eye, a collection of Shakespeare's sonnets, well-worn and clearly beloved. She was lost in the poetry when Ryder returned, his presence announced by the thud of boots on the porch. June quickly returned the book, feeling oddly like she'd been caught prying. I see you found my library, Ryder said, noticing the book in her hands. June smiled apologetically. I hope you don't mind. I've always loved reading. Books are meant to be read, he replied simply. That one was my mother's favorite. She taught me to read from those sonnets. She must have been a remarkable woman. Ryder's expression softened with memory. She was. Came out here as a bride, built this life with Pa from nothing but determination and hard work. He hung his hat by the door. She'd have liked you. The compliment warmed June more than it should have. I wish I could have met her. The day passed in companionable conversation. Ryder proved to be well-spoken and thoughtful, with insights on everything from politics to literature. June found herself laughing for the first time in months at his dry observations about town life and the characters he encountered as a deputy. By evening, June had learned that Ryder had fought briefly in the war despite being barely 17, had traveled extensively before settling back on his family land, and possessed a talent for woodcarving that explained the beautiful pieces throughout the cabin. Did you make all of these? June asked, examining a delicate carving of a mountain bluebird. Winter nights are long out here, Ryder said by way of explanation. Keeps my hands busy. They're beautiful, June said sincerely. Keep it, Ryder offered, nodding to the bluebird. A reminder that there are still beautiful things in the world, even when times are dark. June clutched the carving, touched by the gesture. Thank you. That night, despite June's protests, Ryder again took the loft while she had the bed. As she drifted to sleep, June realized with surprise that she hadn't thought about Garrett all day. For the first time in years, she'd spent hours without fear. The next morning, June awoke to an empty cabin and a note explaining that Ryder had gone to town for supplies. She tested her feet, finding them significantly improved, still tender, but bearable. Using a basin of water Ryder had left for her, she washed as best she could and changed back into her dress, now mostly clean after she'd washed it the previous day. Determined to be useful, June set about tidying the already neat cabin and preparing a meal from the provisions in Ryder's pantry. By the time he returned mid-afternoon, a stew was simmering on the stove, and fresh biscuits were browning in the oven. Ryder paused in the doorway, surprise evident on his face. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to, June said simply. You've been so kind, it's the least I can do. He entered laden with packages. Got you something, he said, somewhat awkwardly extending a parcel wrapped in brown paper. Figured you might need it. Inside, June found a simple but sturdy pair of women's boots. How did you know my size? Guessed from your feet when I was bandaging them, Ryder admitted. Thought you might need something sturdier than silk slippers when you decide to move on. The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought tears to June's eyes. "I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness." "No need," Ryder said, looking uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Any decent person would do the same." "We both know that's not true," June replied softly. Ryder cleared his throat, changing the subject. "Brought news from town, too. Fleming's men were there asking questions." June's blood ran cold. "He's looking for me." "He is," Ryder confirmed. "Offering $100 to anyone who brings you back." "Did anyone recognize your description of me?" June asked, fear gripping her heart. "Never gave one," Ryder said. "Just listen to theirs. Dark-haired woman, green eyes, about 5'4", said she might be injured." His expression darkened. "They're saying you're confused and unwell. That your husband's worried sick about your condition." June's laugh was bitter. "He's worried his property has escaped, nothing more." "I believe you," Ryder said firmly. "But it means we need to be careful. They're searching the area thoroughly, and while this place is out of the way—" "I should leave," June said immediately. "I'm putting you in danger just by being here." "You're not going anywhere yet," Ryder countered. "Not until we have a plan. Fleming's men are watching the roads and the stage depot. Leaving now would be walking right into their hands." "I won't have you risking yourself for me," June insisted. Ryder's expression turned stubborn. "I'm not asking permission, Miss O'Malley. I'm telling you how it's going to be." His tone softened. "At least until your feet are fully healed and we can figure out a safe way to get you to Silverton or beyond." June wanted to argue but knew he was right. With Garrett's men actively searching, her chances alone were slim. "How long do you think they'll keep looking?" "Men like Fleming don't give up easily," Ryder said grimly. "But they can't search forever. Eventually, they'll have to return to their regular duties." They ate dinner in thoughtful silence, the threat of discovery hanging over them. As Ryder cleared the dishes, he paused, seeming to debate something with himself. "I have an idea," he finally said, "but you might not like it." "At this point, I'll consider anything," June replied. "The way I see it, Fleming's men are looking for a woman traveling alone. But a married couple wouldn't raise suspicions." Ryder met her eyes steadily. "If we pretended to be husband and wife, we could travel to Silverton without drawing attention." June blinked, processing his suggestion. "You would do that? Pretend to be married to me?" "It would be the safest way," Ryder said practically. "I need to return to my deputy duties anyway, and you need to get farther from Fleming's reach. It makes sense." It did make sense, logically. But the idea of posing as Ryder's wife sent an unexpected flutter through June's stomach that had nothing to do with fear. "What would happen once we reached Silverton?" she asked. "You'd be free to do as you please," Ryder assured her. "I have a small house in town, nothing fancy, but you could stay there while you find your feet. I mostly live here anyway, so you'd have your privacy." The generosity of his offer overwhelmed her. "Why are you doing all this for me, truly?" Ryder was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed somewhere beyond the cabin walls. "When my sister needed help, no one was there. I've never forgiven myself for not being there either." He looked back at June, his blue eyes intense. "I can't change the past, but I can help you now." June reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Your sister was lucky to have a brother who loved her so much." Something shifted in Ryder's expression, a softening around his eyes, a slight parting of his lips. For a breathless moment, June thought he might say something more, but instead he gently withdrew his hand. "We should get some rest," he said, rising from the table. "If we're going to Silverton, we'll need to leave before dawn." June nodded, suddenly aware of how close they'd been. "Good night, Ryder." "Good night, June." As she settled into bed that night, June found herself thinking not about Garrett or the danger she faced, but about Ryder Harrington, his kindness, his quiet strength, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She told herself it was merely gratitude she felt, but in her heart, she knew it was becoming something more. They rose before the sun, preparing in near silence. June put on her new boots, which fit perfectly, and pinned her hair up beneath a hat Ryder provided. "Keep your head down when we pass others," he instructed, handing her a worn but clean coat that had belonged to his mother. "The fewer people who see your face clearly, the better." As June donned the coat, she caught Ryder watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What is it?" she asked. He shook his head slightly. "Nothing, just, you look different, ready for the journey." He helped her onto a gentle mare while he mounted a sturdy bay gelding. As they rode away from the cabin, June looked back one last time at the place that had become a sanctuary during her darkest hours. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Ryder nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Sometimes the bravest thing we do is start again." They rode steadily through the morning, avoiding the main trails. June's riding skills, rusty from years of disuse, gradually returned as they traveled. Ryder proved to be a patient companion, setting a pace that didn't exhaust her and stopping frequently to rest the horses. During one such break, as they shared a simple meal of jerky and biscuits beside a clear stream, June gathered her courage to ask the question that had been on her mind. "What will you tell people in Silverton? About me, I mean." Ryder considered this as he refilled their canteens. "The truth, mostly. That you're a schoolteacher looking for work. As for the rest," he shrugged, "your past is yours to share or keep private as you choose." "And us," June pressed. "Our supposed marriage, we met in Denver," Ryder said, having clearly thought this through. "Married quickly explains why no one in Silverton has heard of you. You stayed with family while I returned to prepare a home for you." The simplicity of the story was its strength. "You've thought of everything." Ryder smiled wryly. "Part of being a good deputy is thinking ahead. Though I admit, I never expected to be creating a fictional marriage." They continued riding, the landscape gradually shifting as they moved into more mountainous terrain. By late afternoon, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley where a small town nestled among pine trees. "Silverton," Ryder announced, drawing his horse to a halt. "Population 500 and growing thanks to the silver mines." June took in the view the neat rows of buildings, the church spire rising above the trees, smoke curling from chimneys. It looked peaceful, ordinary. "A place where a woman might start over. It's beautiful," she said. "It has its charms," Ryder agreed. "And its share of troubles like anywhere, but the people are decent mostly. I think you'll find it welcoming enough." As they rode down into town, June felt eyes turn toward them with curiosity. She kept her head down as Ryder had instructed, playing the part of the shy new bride. They passed the general store, a saloon, the sheriff's office, and finally stopped before a small white house set slightly apart from the others. "Home," Ryder said, dismounting and coming around to help her down. For the benefit of watching neighbors, he kept his arm around her waist slightly longer than necessary, his touch sending warmth through her despite the cool evening air. The house, like Ryder's cabin, was modest but well kept. 2 rooms downstairs, a kitchen and living area, and what appeared to be a bedroom upstairs. Simple furniture, clean but sparse, spoke of a man who spent little time here. "It's not much," Ryder said, watching her take in the space. "It's perfect," June replied honestly. After Garrett's ostentatious mansion, the simple home felt wonderfully unpretentious. Ryder built a fire in the small hearth while June explored the kitchen, finding it decently stocked with basic provisions. As darkness fell outside, they settled into a domestic routine that felt strangely natural, as if they'd done this 100 times before. After a simple dinner, Ryder cleared his throat. "I should report to the sheriff, let him know I'm back. Will you be all right alone?" June nodded. "I'll be fine. Go. Lock the door behind me," he instructed. "I won't be long." When he'd gone, June wandered through the small house again, trying to imagine herself living here. It wasn't difficult. The space was welcoming despite its simplicity, and already she could envision small touches that would make it more homely: curtains at the windows, perhaps, or a vase of wildflowers on the table. She was lost in these thoughts when a knock at the door startled her. Cautiously, she approached, remembering Ryder's warning to be careful. "Who is it?" she called. "Sarah Nichols, madam," came a friendly female voice. "I live next door. Thought I'd welcome you to Silverton." June hesitated, then decided that refusing to answer would only create suspicion. She opened the door to find a smiling woman about her own age, holding a covered dish. "Brought you some apple pie," Sarah said, extending the dish. "Thought you might appreciate something sweet after your journey. I'm Sarah, and that's my husband Thomas over there, pretending not to be curious." She nodded toward a man tending a garden across the way who waved sheepishly. "June," she replied, accepting the pie. "Thank you for the welcome." "So you're Ryder Harrington's wife," Sarah said, her eyes bright with interest. "We were all surprised when we heard he'd gotten married." Always seemed married to his job, that one. June forced a smile. "We haven't been married long." "Well, you must tell me everything," Sarah insisted. "Where did you meet? Was it terribly romantic? Ryder's always been so serious it's hard to imagine him courting." Before June could fabricate answers, Ryder appeared behind Sarah. "Evening, Mrs. Nichols. I see you've met my wife." Sarah turned, not at all embarrassed at being caught gossiping. "Just being neighborly, Deputy Harrington. Your June is lovely." "That she is," Ryder agreed, and something in his tone made June's cheeks warm. After Sarah departed with promises of more visits soon, Ryder closed the door with a sigh. "Town will be buzzing by morning. Sarah Nichols could talk the ears off a cornfield." June laughed. "She seems nice enough." "Nice, yes. Discreet, no." Ryder hung his hat by the door. "Sheriff sends his regards, says he'd like to meet the woman who finally caught me." "This is going to be complicated, isn't it?" June said, suddenly realizing how difficult their charade might become. "Small towns always are," Ryder agreed. "But it won't matter for long. Once you're established as the school teacher, you can receive news of a family emergency. Return to Denver, then come back later as June O'Malley, a widow seeking a fresh start." The plan was sensible, but June found herself unexpectedly saddened by the idea of ending their pretend marriage. "And what about you? Won't people wonder why you're not more upset by your wife's departure?" "I'll manage," Ryder said simply. "I've always kept to myself. People expect it of me." June nodded, feeling suddenly tired from the day's journey and emotions. "I should sleep. It's been a long day." "Take the bedroom upstairs," Ryder said. "I'll be fine down here." Just as at the cabin, Ryder refused to let her sacrifice comfort for his sake. June was too exhausted to argue, climbing the narrow stairs to the small but neat bedroom above. Sleep came quickly, but not before June acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling for Ryder Harrington. The realization should have frightened her. She'd barely escaped one marriage. The last thing she needed was to contemplate another. And yet, the thought of Ryder brought not fear but a warm certainty, like coming home after a long journey. The next morning, Ryder took her to meet Sheriff Ellis, a gruff but kind-hearted man who seemed genuinely pleased that his deputy had found happiness. From there, they visited the small schoolhouse on the edge of town, where the town council chairman was overjoyed to meet a qualified teacher. "We've had the children reading to each other for months," Mr. Peterson explained, showing June the modest classroom. Parents are getting restless. How soon can you start? Next week, June suggested, looking to Ryder, who nodded approvingly. Wonderful, Peterson exclaimed. The position pays $40 a month, with lodging included, though I suppose you won't need that part, being married to our deputy. By midday, June had secured the teaching position and met half the town, all of whom regarded her with friendly curiosity. Ryder stayed close, playing the attentive husband with a naturalness that surprised her. "You're good at this," she murmured as they walked back toward the house. "At what?" Ryder asked. "Pretending to be in love with me," June said, keeping her voice light despite the flutter in her chest. Ryder was quiet for a moment. "Some things don't require much pretending," he finally said, so softly she almost missed it. Before June could respond, a commotion up ahead drew their attention. A group of riders had entered town, dust billowing behind them. June's blood ran cold as she recognized the lead rider, a man named Tucker, who served as Garrett's foreman. "Inside," Ryder said urgently, guiding her toward the nearest building, the general store. "Don't look back." They slipped inside, Ryder positioning himself to watch through the window while keeping June hidden behind him. "It's Fleming's men," he confirmed grimly. "They're talking to the sheriff." June's heart pounded painfully. "They've tracked me here." "They're searching everywhere," Ryder corrected. "Doesn't mean they know you're here specifically." The store owner, Mr. Jenkins, approached with concern. "Everything all right, Deputy Harrington?" "Fine," Ryder said smoothly. "Just remembered I promised my wife some ribbon for her sewing." Jenkins smiled at June. "Any particular color, Mrs. Harrington?" "Blue," June managed, forcing a smile to match my husband's eyes. While Jenkins fetched the ribbon, Ryder continued watching the street. "They're moving on," he reported quietly. "Heading to the saloon. Sheriff pointed them that way." "He's helping us," June whispered. "Ellis is a good man. He wouldn't turn over a woman to men like that without good reason." Ryder paid for the ribbon, then guided June toward the back door. "We'll take the alley back to the house. Stay close." They made it home without being spotted, but the arrival of Garrett's men had shattered their sense of security. Ryder paced the small living room, his expression dark. "We need to get you further away," he said. "Silverton's too close to Cottonwood Springs. They'll keep searching." "Where would I go?" June asked, fighting despair. "Garrett has connections throughout Colorado territory." Ryder stopped pacing, facing her with sudden determination. "California. My brother lives in San Francisco. You could start fresh there where Fleming has no reach." "California." The suggestion stunned June. "That's so far." "Exactly why it would be safe," Ryder pointed out. "By the time Fleming traced you there, if he ever did, you'd be established, independent." The logic was sound, but the thought of traveling so far alone terrified June almost as much as the thought of being caught. And beneath that fear was another realization. Going to California would mean leaving Ryder. "I can't ask you to give up your life here," she said quietly. Ryder's expression softened. "You didn't ask, I offered." June shook her head, fighting unexpected tears. "You've done enough, more than enough. I can't let you sacrifice anything else for me." "June," Ryder said, crossing the room to stand before her. "What if it's not a sacrifice? What if it's what I want too?" She looked up at him, hardly daring to hope. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that these past days with you have been the most alive I've felt in years," Ryder admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm saying that the thought of you leaving tears me apart inside." June's breath caught as Ryder gently took her hands in his. "I know it's fast," he continued. "I know you've just escaped one marriage and the last thing you need is another man making claims. But I'm not asking for promises, June. I'm just asking for a chance." "A chance at what?" she whispered. "A chance to see if what I feel for you, what I think you might feel for me too, is real." Ryder's blue eyes held hers, sincere and vulnerable. "Come to California, not as my pretend wife, but as yourself. Let me court you properly, slowly. If you decide I'm not what you want, I'll respect that. No obligations, no expectations." The offer was everything June hadn't dared hope for: freedom, safety, and the possibility of love with a man who had already shown her more kindness than she'd thought possible. "What about your position here? Your home?" she asked, still hesitant to let him give up so much. Ryder smiled slightly. "My brother's been asking me to join him in his law practice for years, and homes can be rebuilt." His expression grew serious again. "What matters to me now is you, June, your safety, your happiness." June searched his face, finding nothing but honesty there. In just days, this man had shown her what love could be: not possessive or cruel like Garrett's twisted version, but supportive, kind, and respectful. "Yes," she said finally, her decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. "I'll go to California with you." The joy that transformed Ryder's face was answer enough that she'd made the right choice. He drew her gently into his arms, his embrace warm and secure. "We'll leave tomorrow," he murmured against her hair, "before Fleming's men return." That night, as June packed the few belongings she'd accumulated, she found the small wooden bluebird Ryder had given her at the cabin. She held it carefully, remembering his words, a reminder that there are still beautiful things in the world, even when times are dark. How right he had been. From the darkest night of her life had come this unexpected chance at happiness. Running from Garrett had led her not just to safety, but to the possibility of love with a man who saw her strength rather than sought to break it. Dawn came crisp and clear, painting the mountains in gold and promise. Ryder had arranged everything: tickets on the westbound stage, letters of introduction to his brother, his resignation from the deputy position. Sheriff Ellis, understanding more than he let on, wished them well with a knowing look and a promise to handle any inquiries from Eastern visitors. As they boarded the stage, June glanced back at the small town that had briefly been her haven. Somewhere to the east, Garrett was still searching, still raging at her escape. But his power over her was finished. Ryder took her hand as the stage lurched forward, his touch gentle but sure. "Ready for a new beginning?" June smiled, feeling truly free for the first time in years. "I am now." The stage rolled westward, carrying them toward a future neither could have imagined when June had knocked on a stranger's door that midnight. She had escaped in desperation, but found something far greater than mere safety. She had found hope, possibility, and a love that promised not to cage her, but to help her fly. As mountains gave way to valleys and the journey stretched before them, June leaned against Ryder's shoulder, the wooden bluebird safe in her pocket. Whatever challenges awaited in California, they would face them together, not as property and owner, but as equals, partners in the adventure of building a life worthy of the second chance they'd both been given.